Welcome to The Secret Case. Today we'll explore the disturbing story of Ed Gein, a man who left an indelible mark on the history of crime and popular culture. Known for his disturbing grave robbing and macabre acts, Ed Gein has inspired some of the most iconic films in the horror genre. In this video, we'll delve into his childhood, the heinous actions he committed, his capture, and the lasting impact of his legacy on popular culture. Before we begin, be sure to subscribe to The Secret Case for more shocking stories about dark criminals and historical events. Hit the bell to stay up to date with our new videos. Edward Theodore Gein was born on August 27, 1907, in La Crosse, Wisconsin, to a family with deeply religious beliefs. His mother, Augusta Gein, was a domineering figure who had absolute control over her children's lives. A deeply devout woman, Augusta imposed a rigid and restrictive worldview, teaching Ed and his younger brother, Henry, that the outside world was full of sin and corruption. Ed Gein grew up in an isolated environment, where the only significant influence was that of his mother. The relationship between Ed and Augusta was extremely intense and oppressive. Augusta kept her children isolated from society and instilled in them her negative worldview, which deeply influenced Ed's psychological development. The death of his father in 1913 and his mother in 1945 left Ed in a situation of extreme vulnerability. After his mother's death, Ed was left completely alone on the family farm, an isolated and desolate home in the Wisconsin countryside. The loss of his brother Henry in 1947, who also died under suspicious circumstances, left Ed completely isolated. This complete isolation and the loss of his fundamental family figures led Ed to develop increasingly disturbing behaviors. His mental health deteriorated amidst the loneliness, and he began to display a growing fascination with death and the human body. Following the death of his mother, Ed Gein began to engage in increasingly disturbing activities. In mid-1957, Gein began digging up corpses from local graves, a behavior that intensified over time. His home, located on an isolated farm, became the setting for his disturbing activities. Gein didn't just dig up bodies, he also used the human remains to make a variety of macabre items. He created furniture upholstered in human skin, such as chairs and sofas, and also made lamps and other decorative objects out of skulls and bones. Gein's home became a place of horror, with these disturbing items scattered throughout the home. The disturbing combination of isolation and disturbing behavior led the local community to become suspicious of Gein's activities. Rumors of disappearances and strange behavior began to circulate, and authorities began to investigate further. In November 1957, the disappearance of Bernice Wardens, a local shopkeeper, led to a pivotal investigation. Authorities traced the clues to Gein's farm, where they discovered a scene that defies imagination. Investigators found human remains, disturbing objects, and a series of suits made from human skin in Gein's home. The capture of Ed Gein was an eye-opening and disturbing process. When police arrived at the farm, they were met with a series of chilling discoveries that revealed the true extent of Gein's crimes. The human remains found on his property included a series of women's suits made of skin, containers containing human remains, and other macabre objects. During his interrogation, Gein provided a detailed and disturbing confession. He recounted how he would dig up corpses and use the remains to create his disturbing projects. His confession showed a dark and disturbing side to his psyche, and revealed the extent of his macabre acts. The trial of Ed Gein attracted a great deal of media attention due to the disturbing nature of his crimes. In 1958, Gein was declared mentally incompetent to stand trial and sent to a mental hospital. Later, in 1968, he was finally declared competent to stand trial, but due to his mental state, he was not sentenced to death. Ed Gein spent the rest of his life in a mental hospital, where he died on July 27, 1984. His life in the hospital was an extension of his isolation, removing him from the outside world and the impact of his actions. The story of Ed Gein has had a profound impact on popular culture and the horror genre. His macabre acts inspired a number of authors and filmmakers to create characters and plots based on his crimes. Films such as Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho, The Silence of the Lambs, and The Texas Chainsaw Massacre all feature elements that can be directly traced back to Gein's story. Norman Bates' character in Psycho, Dr. Hannibal Lecter in The Silence of the Lambs, and the disturbing Leatherface in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre are all inspired in part by the story of Ed Gein. These characters have come to define the horror genre and have perpetuated Gein's disturbing legacy in popular culture. Ed Gein's impact on horror culture is undeniable, with his story influencing numerous film and literary productions. His case raises disturbing questions about the nature of evil and how a person can carry out such acts in complete isolation. Despite the horrendous nature of his crimes, Gein's legacy continues to fascinate and terrify the public. His story remains a chilling reminder of how reality can surpass fiction in terms of horror and morbidity. To fully understand Ed Gein's story, it is important to consider the social and cultural context of the times in which he lived. During the 1930s and 1950s, the United States was undergoing great social and cultural changes. The Great Depression and World War II had left a mark on the country's collective psyche, and life in the countryside was harsh and lonely for many. Life in rural America in the 1940s and 1950s was marked by a strong distrust of the unknown and a tendency to marginalize those who were different. Gein's farm, isolated in the Wisconsin countryside, became a place of terror in the midst of an environment that was already hostile and distrustful. Media coverage of Gein's case reflected the fears of the time about the disintegration of morality and the rise of crime. Newspapers and radio programs reported the disturbing details of his crimes, exacerbating public fear and curiosity. In addition, Gein's case became a fascinating study for psychologists and criminologists. His story offered insight into the effects of extreme isolation and family influences on the formation of a disturbed mind. Analysis of his case has contributed to a deeper understanding of psychopathy and criminal behavior, offering lessons on how psychological and social factors can influence behavior. Gein's impact on criminal psychology has also been significant, with studies exploring how his life experiences and environment contributed to his extreme actions. His case remains a benchmark in studies of criminal behavior and mental health. The story of Ed Gein is one of the most disturbing in American crime history. His ability to lead a seemingly normal life while committing such horrendous acts reveals a disturbing facet of human nature. His legacy lives on in popular culture and remains a chilling reminder of how reality can be more disturbing than any fiction. If this story has impacted you and you want to learn more about criminal cases and figures who have left a mark on history, subscribe to The Secret Case. What do you think about Ed Gein's influence on popular culture in horror films? Leave us your opinion in the comments and join the conversation about one of the most disturbing cases we have explored.